What happens when a beloved television personality finally reaches their breaking point during a live broadcast? For years, daytime television has thrived on polished smiles, controlled disagreements, and carefully curated drama, but every so often, the carefully maintained facade cracks. Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking and emotionally charged moments in daytime television history, a moment that left audiences stunned, producers panicked, and the legacy of a long-running show permanently altered. The tensions had been quietly building for weeks, simmering just beneath the surface, unnoticed by viewers at home. On the outside, everything appeared business as usual. But behind the cameras, emotions were fraying, patience was thinning, and unresolved frustrations were stacking up like dry tinder waiting for a spark. That spark arrived on an otherwise ordinary morning when Valerie Bertinelli appeared as a guest on The View. Valerie was invited for what was supposed to be a warm, uplifting segment. She was there to promote her latest cookbook, reflect on her evolving relationship with food, and discuss recent changes in her personal life. The producers had intentionally booked her as a reset guest, someone familiar, comforting, and universally liked. After weeks of heavy political debates and tense panel discussions, the show's leadership wanted a feel-good conversation that would reconnect with viewers and soften the tone of the broadcast. But live television has a way of defying even the best-laid plans. From the moment Valerie walked onto the set, there was an unspoken tension in the air. While the audience applauded enthusiastically and the hosts offered polite smiles, something felt off. Small cues, stiff body language, clipped greetings, and strained laughter hinted that the atmosphere wasn't as relaxed as it should have been. Viewers wouldn't notice these details until later, replaying the footage frame by frame once the incident made headlines. What began as a simple discussion about home cooking and family traditions slowly veered off course. Casual questions turned pointed. Light humor gave way to awkward pauses. Valerie, known for her openness and emotional honesty, spoke candidly about personal struggles, growth, and self-respect. And as she did, her words seemed to strike a nerve, particularly with Joy Behar. Behind the scenes, Joy had been having a difficult week. Sources later revealed that she was increasingly frustrated with the direction of the show. She reportedly felt sidelined in editorial decisions and believed her voice, once central to the program, was being diminished. Longtime staff members noticed that she had become sharper in rehearsals, more withdrawn between segments, and openly critical of producers' choices. Joy had allegedly expressed feeling undervalued and overlooked, especially when it came to booking guests and shaping discussions. She felt the show was drifting away from the form that she helped build, leaning too heavily into performative conflict rather than meaningful conversation. While these frustrations had been discussed privately, they had never erupted publicly until that morning. As Valerie spoke about reclaiming control over her life and setting boundaries, Joy interjected with a comment that many viewers interpreted as dismissive. Valerie responded calmly at first, but the exchange quickly escalated. Voices rose, interruptions multiplied, the audience grew quiet, the other co-hosts exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the conversation run its course. Then came the moment no one expected. Joy, visibly emotional, abandoned her usual sarcasm and composure. Her voice cracked as she launched into a raw, unscripted rant, one that blurred the line between professional disagreement and personal confession. She spoke about being tired, unheard, and pushed aside. What was meant to be an interview had transformed into a live airing of grievances. Producers were scrambling behind the scenes. Control room staff debated cutting to commercial, but the exchange was unfolding too quickly. Cutting away might have fueled speculation. Staying live risked complete chaos. For several agonizing seconds, the broadcast teetered on the edge of collapse. Valerie, clearly shaken, tried to de-escalate the situation, but the damage was already done. The emotional dam had broken. The moment went viral within minutes. Clips flooded social media before the show even ended. By lunchtime, headlines were already calling it one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime TV history. In the days that followed, the fallout was swift and severe. Statements were released, apologies were made, internal meetings were held behind closed doors, fans took sides. Critics dissected every second of the exchange. debating who was at fault and what it revealed about the deeper issues plaguing the show. What was once meant to be a light-hearted segment became a defining moment. Reminder that even seasoned television veterans are human, and that live broadcasts can expose truths no script can contain. And perhaps the most unsettling question remained: was this moment truly spontaneous, or was it the inevitable result of pressures that had been ignored for far too long? I never claimed to be an expert, and I certainly never suggested that my experience was universal, Valerie said firmly, though her voice carried a note of restraint. I shared my story hoping it might help someone else who's going through something similar. Joy let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. She leaned back in her chair and scoffed loudly, rolling her eyes with theatrical exaggeration. Help someone else, she shot back. The only thing you're helping is your bank account. Let's be honest, this whole reinventing yourself through cooking thing is just another celebrity cash grab. And frankly, I'm tired of pretending otherwise. A ripple of discomfort spread across the table. The other co-hosts exchanged worried glances, their smiles long gone. The tone of the conversation had shifted from tense to outright hostile, and it was becoming increasingly clear that this was no longer about cookbooks or personal growth. This was something deeper, something raw. Sarah Haynes, sensing the moment slipping out of control, attempted to intervene. She leaned forward slightly, her voice calm and conciliatory. I think what Valerie is trying to share is actually really beautiful, she said gently. A lot of people do find comfort in cooking during difficult times. It's something accessible, something grounding. But Joy snapped her head towards Sarah, cutting her off mid-sentence. Oh, you think it's beautiful too, she fired back. Of course you do. You probably think every celebrity's journey of self-discovery is beautiful and inspiring. Sarah blinked, visibly startled. Well, I don't. Joy continued, her voice rising. I think it's calculated. I think it's fake, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise just to make everyone comfortable. The audience was now completely silent. No nervous laughter, no polite applause. Just an eerie stillness, the kind that signals something has gone terribly wrong. Even the camera operators seemed unsure where to focus, cutting quickly between faces as the tension mounted. Valerie took a slow, deliberate breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but she clasped them together, determined to maintain her composure. Joy, she said carefully, I honestly don't know what I've done to upset you, but this feels very personal. If you have an issue with me specifically, maybe we should discuss it privately rather than attacking me on live television. That sentence seemed to push Joy past her breaking point. She slammed her hand down on the table with a loud crack, causing several people to jump in their seats. Gasps echoed through the studio. Personal? Joy snapped. You want to know what's personal? She leaned forward, her voice now shaking with fury. What's personal is watching this show turn into a celebrity therapy session where we're supposed to nod along and praise every has-been actor who writes a cookbook. Valerie stiffened, her jaw tightening. What's personal, Joy continued, is being told I need to be nicer to guests who are clearly just here to sell their products. Being told I should smile and clap while the same tired stories get recycled over and over again. At that point, Whoopi Goldberg had had enough. Joy, Whoopi said firmly, raising her hand. I think we need to take a breath here and remember that we have a guest. But Joy was beyond reason. She abruptly stood up from her chair, her face flushed red with anger. She pointed directly at Valerie, her finger trembling as she spoke. Don't lecture me about taking a breath, Whoopi. I've been taking breaths for years while watching this show lose its edge and turn into some kind of celebrity love fest. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Well, I'm done taking breaths, Joy declared, and I'm done pretending that every C-list celebrity who stumbles onto this stage deserves our respect just because they wrote a book about finding themselves. That was it. Valerie pushed her chair back and stood up as well. Her patience, carefully maintained for the entire segment, had finally snapped. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was steady and resolute. That's enough, she said. I don't know what your problem is, but I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect me like this. I came here as a guest, and you're treating me like I personally wronged you somehow. Joy laughed bitterly, shaking her head. Wronged me, she sneered. Honey, you couldn't wrong me if you tried. The studio felt frozen in time. Producers were undoubtedly shouting instructions into headsets. Someone off camera could be seen signaling frantically. But the cameras kept rolling. Joy crossed her arms, her voice dripping with contempt. You're just a symbol of everything this show has become: safe, sanitized, and obsessed with celebrity feelings. Valerie stared at her, stunned. Whoopi stood up now too, positioning herself slightly between them. All right, she said firmly. That's enough. We're going to stop this right now. But the damage was already done. This was no longer an uncomfortable interview. It was a full-scale implosion, raw, unfiltered, and unfolding live before millions of viewers. In that moment, it became painfully clear that this wasn't really about Valerie at all. She had simply walked into a storm that had been brewing long before she arrived. And as the tension crackled through the studio, one thing was certain. Daytime television had just crossed a line it could never uncross. If you tried, Joy snapped coldly. You're not important enough to wrong me. You're just another aging actress, desperately trying to stay relevant by writing cookbooks and talking about your feelings. It's pathetic, and what's even more pathetic is that we're all supposed to sit here and pretend it's inspiring. The insult hung in the air like a toxic cloud. For a split second, time seemed to stop. Valerie's eyes welled with tears, the hurt unmistakable, but she straightened her posture and refused to retreat. When she spoke, her voice was steady, sharpened by quiet resolve. You know what's really pathetic, Joy? She said. A woman your age bullying someone on live television because you're clearly miserable with your own life. I feel sorry for you. The words landed like a physical blow. Joy's face flushed, the red deepening into something darker, almost purple. Her mouth opened, but no words came out at first. The studio fell into an eerie silence, thick with anticipation. Everyone, hosts, audience, crew, waited, holding their breath. When Joy finally spoke, her voice was low, dangerous, and trembling with barely restrained rage. Miserable with my own life, she repeated slowly, her eyes locked onto Valerie. You think I'm miserable? She leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table. Let me tell you what miserable looks like, sweetheart. Miserable is being a washed-up actress who peaked decades ago and now has to churn out cookbooks to pay the bills. Miserable is having to reinvent yourself every few years because nobody remembers why they cared about you in the first place. Valerie shook her head in disbelief, tears spilling now despite her efforts to stay composed. This is unbelievable, she said quietly. I've never experienced anything like this in 20 years of interviews. What is wrong with you? What's wrong with me? Joy shot back, her voice rising again as all pretense of professionalism vanished. What's wrong is that I've been doing television longer than you've been relevant, and I have to sit here listening to your sob story about finding yourself through cooking like it's some kind of profound revelation. She gestured angrily toward the table. What's wrong is that this show used to have standards. Whoopi Goldberg stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Joy, that's enough, she said firmly. We need to go to commercial right now. But Joy spun toward her, fury now redirected at her longtime colleague. Don't you dare tell me that's enough, Whoopi, she shouted. You've been letting this show turn into a joke for years, booking nobody guests and expecting us to treat them like they matter. Well, I'm not playing that game anymore. The other hosts were frozen in shock. Sarah looked as though she might cry. The newer panel members sat rigidly, afraid to say a word. The audience was completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Behind the scenes, producers were scrambling, voices crackling through headsets, fingers hovering over buttons. But the cameras kept rolling. Valerie, still standing beside her chair, turned to Whoopi. I think I should leave, she said softly. This clearly isn't about me, and I don't want to be part of whatever this is. She began gathering her things, but Joy wasn't finished. Oh, you want to leave? Joy sneered. How convenient. Can't handle a little honest conversation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. These celebrity guests come here expecting to be coddled and praised. And the moment someone challenges their narrative, they want to run away. Valerie stopped. Slowly, she turned back, her anger finally cresting. Honest conversation, she said. Is that what you call this? You've done nothing but attack me personally since I sat down. You haven't asked me one legitimate question about my book or my life. You've just been cruel and nasty for no reason I can understand. Cruel and nasty? Joy laughed harshly. You haven't seen cruel yet. You want to know what's cruel. Watching talented people get pushed aside to make room for has-beens who think they can buy relevance with a cookbook deal. Sunny Hostin finally found her voice. Joy, I think we all need to step back and take a moment. This isn't productive for anyone. Joy immediately rounded on her. Productive? She barked. What's productive about giving airtime to people who have nothing meaningful to contribute? What's productive about turning this show into a celebrity therapy couch? Her voice grew louder, more erratic, each sentence unraveling faster than the last. Valerie had heard enough. She turned away from the table and looked directly into the camera. I want to apologize to anyone watching this, she said, her voice trembling but sincere. I came here to share something positive, and instead you're witnessing something very ugly. This isn't who I am, and I hope it's not who this show wants to be. That appeal sent Joy into a frenzy. Don't you dare apologize for me, she screamed. And don't you dare try to make yourself the victim. You're just another celebrity who can't handle being challenged. Whoopi stepped between them, placing herself squarely in Joy's path. Joy, you need to stop this right now. This has gone way too far. But Joy pushed past her. I'll stop when I'm ready to stop, she shouted. I'm tired of being managed, handled, and told how to behave. This is live television. And sometimes live television gets messy. Deal with it. Valerie met Joy's gaze one last time. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and dignified. I won't let your anger define me, she said, and I won't participate in this anymore. The studio remained frozen as the moment stretched on, raw, unscripted, and impossible to undo. Whatever had just happened, one thing was certain. This wasn't just a segment gone wrong. It was a complete on-air implosion, the kind that would be replayed, debated, and remembered long after the cameras finally stopped rolling. The studio audience was completely silent now. The cheerful energy that typically defined a live daytime broadcast had vanished, replaced by an uneasy stillness that felt almost oppressive. Faces in the crowd reflected a mixture of shock, disbelief, and genuine fear. Some audience members sat frozen in their seats, hands clasped tightly in their laps. Others glanced nervously at one another, unsure whether they were witnessing a moment of television history or something far more disturbing. A few people slowly began reaching for their phones. Joy noticed immediately. Her eyes darted toward the glowing screens, and she pointed at them accusingly, her voice sharp and defiant. Go ahead, she snapped. Record this, post it everywhere. Let the world see what happens when someone finally tells the truth on live television. She turned in a slow circle, gesturing broadly toward the audience and the cameras. Let them see what happens when someone refuses to play the game anymore. The camera zoomed in as Joy faced forward, her face flushed deep red, beads of sweat visible along her hairline. Her breathing was heavy and uneven, her chest rising and falling rapidly as adrenaline coursed through her. You know what? She said suddenly, her voice ringing through the studio. I'm done. A murmur rippled faintly through the audience. I'm done with this show. Joy continued, louder now. I'm done with these fake conversations, and I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not for the sake of ratings. The words hit like a thunderclap. Shock waves tore through the studio. Even crew members who had been trained to remain invisible, camera operators, floor managers, production assistants, were now staring openly, their professionalism momentarily forgotten. This wasn't just a meltdown anymore. This was something far bigger. This was a resignation, unfolding live on national television. Whoopi Goldberg stood up immediately, urgency in her movements. Joy, let's take a step back, she said, her voice firm but pleading. You don't mean that. You're upset, and understandably so, but let's not make decisions we can't take back. But Joy wasn't listening. She reached down and began untying her microphone, her hands trembling. Whether from rage, adrenaline, or exhaustion, no one could tell. I absolutely mean it, Whoopi, she said without looking at her. I've never meant anything more in my life. She worked the wire free, her fingers moving with sharp, practiced motions. I'm tired of being told to smile and be pleasant while this show turns into everything I never wanted it to become. With deliberate ceremony, Joy pulled the microphone pack from her waistband and placed it on the table. The soft thud echoed unnervingly through the silent studio. "I've been doing television longer than some of you have been alive," she continued, "and I've never been more disgusted with what it's become." She gestured angrily around the set. "The fake friendships, the manufactured controversy, the celebrity worship, all of it makes me sick." No one spoke. The audience sat motionless, fully aware they were witnessing something unprecedented. The red live light still glowed. There was no cut to commercial, no music, no escape. Sarah finally found her voice, though it shook with emotion. "Joy," she said softly, "please, this isn't you. We can talk about this off camera. We don't have to do this right now." Joy turned to her, eyes blazing. "This is me," she replied. "This is who I've been holding back for years, and I'm done holding back." She took a step away from the table, as if physically separating herself from the show she'd been part of for so long. "I refuse to sit here one more day and pretend this circus is meaningful discourse. I refuse to clap for stories that are packaged and sanitized to make celebrities feel good about themselves." Valerie stood quietly off to the side, arms folded tightly across her chest, tears streaking down her face. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The moment had grown far beyond her. Whoopi stepped closer to Joy, lowering her voice. "You're hurting people," she said gently. "You're hurting yourself." Joy laughed bitterly. "Maybe it's time someone got hurt," she said. "Maybe that's the only way the truth ever comes out." The control room was in chaos. Producers were shouting conflicting instructions. Legal teams were likely already being contacted, but no one could agree on what to do, because no one had ever planned for something like this. Joy looked back at the camera one last time. "If you're watching this at home," she said, her voice steadier now, almost eerily calm, "know this. What you see on television is rarely real. It's curated, rehearsed, and filtered through layers of bullshit. Today, you're seeing what happens when someone finally tears the filter off." She paused, scanning the room, and I won't apologize for that. For several seconds no one moved. The silence was deafening. Finally, a stage manager rushed into frame, whispering urgently to Whoopi. The camera wobbled slightly as operators scrambled, unsure whether to stay wide or cut away. Joy picked up her bag from the floor and slung it over her shoulder. She didn't look back. As she walked off the set, the audience remained silent. No applause, no boos, just stunned disbelief. Only after she disappeared backstage did the reality of what had just happened truly settle in. A daytime talk show had just imploded on live television, and nothing, apologies, statements, or damage control, would ever fully erase what the world had just seen.